A lot of Seahawks fans are asking the question, why did the Seahawks trade for Sam Howell instead of trading for Justin Fields? Now, it's a question that I'm going to give you my thoughts on. I'll give you some numbers, financial situations, and maybe the opinions of others. But at the end of the day, it is a question that's not going to really be able to be answered of what the right choice would have been until we see both of the respective futures in the NFL. It's interesting to see Justin Fields goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks, and they both gave up a couple picks, some pick swaps, whatever it is. They're not necessarily that much different of deals, but the money is where the big part comes in for me. At the end of the day, before we even look at statistics, their potential, where the future could land for both these guys, we have to look at the money. Sam Howell is 24 years old this year. He'll be making $985,000, and it is a $985,000 cap hit. Next year, Sam Howell, at 25 years old, will be on the roster at $1.1 million, and his cap hit will only be $1.1 million. Justin Fields, on the other hand, is currently 25, a year older than Sam Howell. He is at a $1.6 million contract this year with a $3.2 million cap hit, which is triple, if not actually a little bit more than triple Sam Howell's. And next year, it's a player option, so do not get me wrong. They can cut him next year, pre-June 1st or post-June 1st, and it would be saved on the cap. And no dead money. $25.664 million cap hit and salary. So the Pittsburgh Steelers trading for Justin Fields means they are committed that if they like him this year, whether it's starting over Russell Wilson, whether it's love him as a backup, whether it's 1 year of Russell Wilson, then we take Justin Fields. Next year, his cap hit and his salary is $25.6 million. And I think that is the first and foremost, before we get into statistics or anything else, that is the number one reason the Seahawks went for Sam Howell. Because there could be some potential for both of them that is very similar. There could be maybe some more upside for Sam Howell. There could be some more upside for Justin Fields, whatever you want to consider. It's somewhat opinion-based because we have smaller sample sizes of their careers, and they're not that great. And for Justin Fields, we have even a bigger sample size, and it hasn't been that great. And there's a lot of potential there. We know that. And there's a lot of potential of Sam Howell. But the $25 million next year is a big deal. And here's why. The Seahawks have Geno Smith. They're paying him about that $25 million that Justin Fields gets next year. And he's probably the starter this year. Even if we traded for Justin Fields, Geno Smith's got the job this year. I'd rather personally... Now, it depends. If you're telling me I want to build for the next 10 years, okay, start Justin Fields because there's some more like long-term upside, I guess. But this year, Geno Smith was going to be the quarterback. And to bring in Justin Fields to be a backup for $1.6 million or $3.2 on the cap and then have to pay him $25 million next year if we want to keep him, it just doesn't seem worth it. Like, what is the scenario here? If he does play good this year, the next year we have a quarterback that's $25 million. And unless he ends up being, super duper good, is he really the quarterback of the future? That's why it's such a hard decision to make on Justin Fields. While Sam Howell next year or this year, whatever it is, let's say he does not play a game this year and he's a decent backup and they like him in the building like they like Drew Lock the last couple years, just like they liked Geno Smith a couple years before that, and he ended up being the starter one day. Sam Howell, if they like him this year and they say we should develop him 1 year, Geno's a free agent next year, Sam's going to be a guy competing for the job, $1.1 million cap hit. And a lot of times, if you have your guy who's good enough, that's when the team gets really good. When you have that quarterback for $1 million and you had built up the rest of the team to be really good, you believe in Sam Howell, and then you run with it and you see what happens. And at the end of the day, I'm going to just go to the stats, okay? Justin Fields, 3 seasons in. 58 completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 picks. Not the best start to his career. We'll get to rushing, don't worry. Year 2, Justin Fields, 60%, 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks. Year 3, 61 completion percentage, 5,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 picks. Now, he got a little bit better passing his second and third year. Some might say his second year was actually better on the passing and all, and his second year was probably better in total, because if we look at the rushing, year 2, he had 1,100 rushing yards with 8 touchdowns. Compared to this year, he had 657 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So 2022 showed some crazy good Justin Fields potential, which is why, remember, before the season, so many people had him as a sleeper MVP pick, than the most improved player of the year type of guy. Because 2022, now the passing stats weren't phenomenal, but like 17 touchdowns and 11 picks with 2,200 yards. And then you took rushing 1,143, 8 touchdowns. So when we look at it, he had in total 3,400 yards. He had 25 touchdowns with the rushing and 11 picks. So now if you combine the rushing and passing, all of a sudden that's a pretty high-level quarterback. But he still had a 53 QBR, an 85 quarterback rating. It wasn't necessarily phenomenal. But then you go to the next year. You're expecting a big leap, and I'm never blame a guy who's with the Chicago Bears. It's like, they've never had a good quarterback. It's been since the 60s. Jay Cutler's been their best quarterback for the last 50 years. It's a hard place to be a good quarterback. Why? I don't know. Are they cursed? I don't know, but it just doesn't work. To go from 2,200 yards with 1,200 rushing and 8 touchdowns, the next year was a slight regression. 61% completion percentage was up by 1%. The QBR went down by 10 from 56 to 46. His quarterback rating went up 1 point. He had 300 more passing yards, 1 less touchdown, 2 less picks. But then you go to the rushing yards, they're cut in half at 600. And the rushing touchdowns are cut in half from 8 to 4. Now, the fumbles were cut down from 9 to 3, but at the end of the day, he didn't take this magnificent leap. Now, if those rushing yards went down from 1,200 to 600, and he went from 2,500 yards to 3,500, all of a sudden we're talking about something different. Then you go to Sam Howell, right? Sam Howell, compared to when the Bears were having Justin Fields out there at 370 passing attempts, Sam Howell had 612 passing attempts last year in his full first season. So he was out there. Even with 600 passing attempts, he was up to a 63.4 completion percentage, which I'm not saying is phenomenal, and I'm not saying he played well because he got sacked a lot. The team sucked. I mean, the team was just even worse situation than Justin Fields and the Bears. Washington might have been the worst overall team, the overall talent that we've seen in a long time for that franchise. And they're supposed to have a good coach in Ron Rivera. It didn't pan out. Sam Howell was not in a great situation as a young guy, but he had 3,900 yards, almost a 4,000-yard season. I know he threw the ball more than anybody else in the league, which is there's some pros to that and some cons when it comes to what we saw him as a talent. Because he came out with 3,900 yards. He threw 21 touchdowns, but he threw 21 picks, and he was sacked 65 times in 17 games. So now where the pros and cons come from, we can see the pro that he threw the ball 600 times. He still was, at 63-ish%, which for having a bad line while being sacked 65 times, he probably was doing all right at the 63 clip. I mean, compared to a guy like Justin Fields, who's at 61%, only threw the ball 370 times. You can see who trusted their quarterback more and who had a better completion percentage with 300 more passes. The 21 touchdowns is a decent sign. It should have probably been a little bit higher when you're considering a guy throwing for 3,900 yards, 612 times. The 21 picks. Okay. When you're in a bad situation, a bad team, okay, we all have seen the Josh Allen comparison, or at least most of us have. There's been a graphic going all over the internet, right? The Josh Allen versus Sam Howell comparison in their first, 18 games in their careers. And in their first 18 games of their careers, they do have extremely, and I mean extremely, similar numbers. We're talking about the same amount of picks. Sam Howell actually had more touchdowns, almost the same amount of yards. Now, Josh Allen was probably a little better in the run game, but at the end of the day, don't forget guys like Peyton Manning who threw 20-something picks, almost 30 actually, I think, in their first year with less games. Josh Allen threw 20-something picks. Geno Smith, who Sam Howell is competing or backing up, whatever we get to, whatever that ends up being, had 21 picks in his rookie year. And yeah, you know what? It didn't pan out for a while, but then he ended up becoming a decent starter in the NFL after he got out of shit franchises. So Sam Howell's moving to a good franchise. GM and John Schneider, who believes in him, who wanted him out of the draft, can they get that guy who threw 300 or 3,900 yards and had 21 touchdowns down to 10 picks in a full season on top of his 263 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns? I know he had 400 less rushing yards than Justin Fields this year, but he had one more rushing touchdown than he did. I mean, it's something. It is something. In total this year, 26 touchdowns with rushing and passing and 21 picks. I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, and I know, but this is how I'm assuming the Seahawks see it. Justin Fields, they've seen him have to throw the ball, seen him running it, seen the fumbles. They see that maybe the arm, there's nothing extraordinary about it. With Sam Howell, I know it's a very big hypothetical, but if they can get a guy like that in the building, bring down his picks, calm him down, can you get a 4,000, year season out of a guy like that with 21 touchdowns and 10 picks with also 5 rushing touchdowns? And if Sam Howell had that, if I told you, Sam Howell, take away 1 or 2 bad games of Sam Howell, where you take away a 3-pick game and another 3-pick game. If you're down to 15 picks or 14 picks, all of a sudden you're like, hey, 4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns. Okay, 14 picks is a little high, but 5 rushing touchdowns. You would all of a sudden see it way different than the 21 picks. But a lot of young players do that, especially in bad situations. Overall, when I look at the Seahawks, it's very simple. Justin Fields, he has some running ability, he has some passing ability. He's going to be $25 million next year. We've got to see 3 full seasons of him. We saw a progression season and a regression season. Now, he's the same thing as Sam Howell. Now, I'm going to give him both credit. Shitty organization, shitty situation. So you can't really take too much out of it. But we've seen Justin Fields have 3 years of opportunity. And he's going to be worth $25 million next year. With Sam Howell, he is going to be worth $1 million next year. And he can be a backup this year without worrying about what his player option next year. He can be a backup this year. They can see if they can develop him. They probably believe in his arm a little bit more and the price a little bit more. And once all that gets sorted out, you might have an opportunity that Sam Howell takes over the job next year if you don't want to re-sign Geno Smith, or he just ends up being a really good backup for less than $1.2 million both years. And that ends up being an extremely valuable asset regardless in the NFL. So why did the Seahawks take Sam Howell over Justin Fields in this situation? I think simply two reasons. The draft picks were about the same, so that's not going to change much. The money is $1.1 million next year versus a $25 million player option. And number 2 is, I think the Seahawks genuinely believe in Sam Howell's arm more than Justin Fields. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at a potential backup, like Justin Fields is the backup to Russell Wilson right now. Sam Howell right now the backup to Geno Smith. They're probably looking at which arm can we develop a little bit more? Which one do we believe that we can develop to a slightly bigger level? And I think the Seahawks actually believe that it's Sam Howell. Also, while being $24 million cheaper next year if they want him on the roster. Because you can keep Sam Howell as the backup if you like him too for $1 million next year. You can't keep Justin Fields as the backup next year for $25 million. I think those are the simple reasons why. Sam Howell over Justin Fields. You let me know what you think. Comment below. Should the Seahawks have traded for Justin Fields or Sam Howell or neither? Maybe the draft was the option. That's something we're going to get to next week too. I think it's going to be interesting. Are we even going to take a quarterback? I don't even know anymore. That's going to be an interesting situation. I'm Sammy on Tap. I'm doing Seahawks videos 4 to 5 times a week with one other NFL video mixed in here and there. So please like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of stuff. I will be talking Seahawks football, like I said, 4 to 5 times a week. And I'll probably bring up another NFL video here or there, but mostly Seahawks. So like and subscribe if you want to support. I love y'all, and we'll be back next time. Peace.